I should introduce Mark Merrywest, MBA. He finished his MBA in
last year.
Yeah. And he is director of MBA agency, and he's going to talk to us about how he has changed his office dynamic.
Yeah.
Office dynamic with a innovative way to manage his team.
Great, thank you. I've got the graveyard shift, keeping everyone from their lunch, but I'll try and keep it interesting. So the title of the talk was Just the Right Amount for Productivity, and one of the key things that it's interesting to hear about the Institute of Productivity and things moving forwards, and it's one of the things that we've been focusing on, but in a number of different ways around the business. One of the things that I do this, or types of this talk to various people, the first thing I hear is it won't work for us, which is not very MBA thing, a very closed mind, but also in the fact that you do have to really think around the topic and not just take one aspect of it, and I'll explain as I go through. So I'm Mark, I'm the director of a creative marketing agency called Made. We've been around for about 10-15 years. We do a lot of work with universities, government institutions, sort of larger kind of corporations is our main kind of market. We're also now looking at things in the areas of larger businesses or medium to large businesses, and looking at their marketing and their consultancies around a package as we go through various things. So a bit of background about me. I'm originally a computer programmer, did that in King's College London in the late 90s, became a teacher, then a web developer, and then that's turned into being a company director. And I did my MBA, executive MBA, 16 to 18 at MBS, and I took over at Made as the sole director of Made in September 17. I'll explain a bit more about what was happening at the time. This is our old office, quite a small, dark, the team always talk about the ceilings being very, very low. And one of the things at the time is that the company was very successful, had been doing really, really well. But as we started to do well, the directors, including myself, were taking a bit of a abstract away from where we were in terms of the business. And we were looking to appoint managers of things that we were going through, but it had quite a bad effect in terms of the morale internally. There was less marketing involved. People started doing their own thing. We weren't really gathering anything together, and the business, it turns out, was quite kind of focused on the directors, on the leadership, in terms of what they're actually doing as they move forward. So Made in 2017, when I took back over, we really needed to do something different. So I did this in terms of the kind of areas of an MBA or as a marketing consultancy that actually things, as how we can actually sort of put things together. So we looked at various aspects, looked at strategy, and in particular, one of the key kind of models that I used was the cultural web. And looked at all the different aspects of the indicators that would help the people within the business to be able to move things forwards. We looked at our brand, and there's a key aspect of a word which I'll explain later called lagom, which is what we still talk about in terms of our branding and how we move things forwards. Our operations were not very efficient at all, and one of the key things was that they weren't joined up, but we weren't actually thinking as the whole picture right from the first contact from the member of customers or from contacting member of staff right the way through to delivery and beyond. So we looked at how systems thinking can work from that as well. In terms of leadership, both in terms of the way that I was moving things forward with the strategy, but also in terms of everyone being a leader, and how we can flatten the structure as we move things forward to be able to really kind of innovate internally and for everybody else as they move through. Our organisational culture, which is what I'm going to focus on in a minute, which is about our working hours, which is one of the key differences. Our marketing, internal, external, social media, and everything else as we go through. And also the fact of the service-led marketing. One of the key things which always made me think at the time and still does, and I still say this to people and they don't really know what I mean, but there was a quote from a lecture where they said that people don't buy a drill, they buy a hole in the wall. And it always sort of strikes me, you know, we're not buying a website, we're buying a way of being able to market our products, we're buying a way of being able to put things outwards. And just having that change about how we're looking at the fact that we're actually not using a product, we're doing a service to people in our industry, really made a difference in how we move forwards. So this word lagom, it's Swedish. It means, there isn't a translation in English, but it means just the right amount. I describe it as the Goldilocks effect. It's not too little, not too much. So sometimes it gets a little bit distracted in terms of people saying, you know, you're just doing enough. It's not just doing enough, it's doing the right amount. And it flows through everything that we do, everything that we look at. You know, if somebody says, well, you know, how much time should I spend on this? Well, it's the lagom amount of time. It's actually a phrase, it's a verb, it's a word, it's a lagom amount of time to be able to do stuff. And this works through everything we do in terms of our working hours, our operations, our customer interactions, our communications, our decision making. Everything is done through lagom. And that has been a real change and a real difference to what we do all the way through. Importantly, it means that everybody in the business knows exactly what we do when we talk about something. And the key point, which was really interesting about 6 to 9 months in, was when it started coming back to me in the way that wasn't taking the mick. No swearing, so taking the mick. When people said, you know, well, this is the lagom, you know, they actually were saying it back to me rather than me sort of, you know, with a little smile on their face, they were actually saying it. And that was the point where we really knew that we'd got something as we were going through. So one of the key aspects is about the fact that we have a 6-hour working day. And I have this debate with many, many people all the way through things. We work for 6 hours a day. We work, I know it's slightly more. I know we've got half an hour either side. But just to explain how we work, we start in the morning with our stand-up meeting, our scrum meeting that some people may know, at 8:45. We have a meeting, we just talk about what we're going to do during the day, and then from 9 o'clock till 12 o'clock we're working really hard, and we're focused on what we're doing. We do have a coffee break together at 10:30, which is what we call fika time, which again is a Swedish concept. We get up out of our desks, have a stretch, go and get our coffee together, talk to each other, and then we settle down again for an hour and a half and carry on till 12. At 12 o'clock, the door is shut, everybody leaves, we go and have some lunch, we walk around, we do something completely different, no one's allowed to do any work. 1 o'clock, back in the office, and we repeat to the afternoon. And at 4 o'clock, we then start to do our emails to say, you know, tidy up for the day, send the emails out to the people and the clients, and by 4:15, the door's shut and we're all gone home. The argument is, if we can do it like that for 6 hours, why can't we do it for 8 hours? Why can't we do it for 10 hours? Why don't we do it for 4 hours? And the answer is, because it's the lagom amount of time. Okay. And actually, we have tested this process, not very academically, but we've tested it intuitively as we've gone through. We know we can work for an hour and a half. We know, and most people could try it, sit down, focus, concentrate on a piece of work for an hour and a half. Avoid any distractions around what you're doing. Turn your phone off, turn your email off, do anything else. Sit there and focus on one piece of work, and I bet you'll find it's about somewhere between an hour and 15 and an hour and 45 minutes. So an hour and a half. Okay? And you will find that you will get so much more done by doing that piece of work and then stopping, having a break, walking around and doing that piece of work than you will do by trying to interplay and interchange. We're not computers. We're not trying to multitask things as we're going in. It's better to avoid the distractions and do the piece of work. And one of our key things is we have this thing called the library rules, whereby we don't disturb each other when we're working in that hour and a half time. The amount of times that you probably have in anything that you've done, where you sat down, you're 20 minutes in, and somebody goes, "Oh, can you provide me?" Well, that is not helping anybody in the process. If it can't wait for an hour and a half, and it's really, really, really important, then you can go and disturb somebody. Otherwise, let's leave each other to the work. So we have this thing called library rules, and it works brilliantly. We have shorter meeting times. If it's more than half an hour, we leave it, we come back to it. And one of the things that we don't have, and we really make a big point, is we don't have the gimmicks. We don't have slides, bars, pool tables, trying to make our office place like our home life. We put our home life at home and our work at work. And we make sure there's a real distinction. At lunchtime, 12 to 1, you can go to the gym, you can do whatever you like, you can go to the pool table in the pub. You don't have to have a pool table in our office, because we're not trying to keep you in the office to do the work. And we have this thing called a calm working environment with no deadlines. So we are a creative marketing agency. Our clients want our websites done in 3 weeks' time. Absolutely fine, we still meet them. But what we don't do is set these targets and task-based processes as we go through. We work really hard on our work for that amount of time until it's done. And you find you do it in just the same amount of time as if you set yourself those deadlines, because you've not got that stress, you've not got that real kind of, must get it done, must do this, you work really hard on the process and you get it done in exactly the same amount of time. And then we call it a calm working environment. That's actually something which I'll come back to later on. So not having a deadline is really important to everything that we do, and it helps us to bring through this thing. One of the key challenges that we have is about the rigidity. You have to be at work between 9 and 12 and 1 and 4. And we get a challenge back about what about flexible working? What about people that have childcare, or you have this, or you have to do something else? I want to work from home. And the two aspects of it that our team have found is that we call it flexible rigidity. People know that that's the expectation when they're in work, and it's a short amount of time, and a goal amount of time, that actually they can do the other things outside of work. One of my members of staff, or two of my members of staff, have got young children, and they like the fact that they can be home to pick their child up, have dinner with them with the right amount of time before they go to bed. And they love it. They don't need to work from home. They don't want to work from home. They like that rigidity as they go through various things. So it really is the case that we work in work, we're home in home, and it's working really, really well. The other thing about having time to work at home, people like the peace and quiet. The number of times you hear people say, I'm going to work from home today because I get loads done. So we just put that kind of culture into our work life, and we just allow people to be working on ourselves. So the results. Over this last year, we're now one team pulling together. One aspect, that I didn't mention earlier on was that we had people that would come in at 8:30, 8 o'clock, and leave at 4. Some people would come in at 10 and leave at 7. Some people would have an hour lunch break at 2. Some would have it at 11. We had no time when we were doing stuff together, and we were always in that disparate section of things and not thinking about the bigger picture. We're now one team. We're moving together. We don't talk during work time, but we're always together at lunchtime, which is really, really great, and we're moving things forwards. We are much more efficient in what we do. Just by taking it back and being calmer, we're much more efficient in what we're doing. And we are as productive, not more productive, but we're as productive in 6 hours as we ever were in 8. So if we can do the same amount of work in 6 hours than we used to do in 8, let's do it in 6. That's the legal amount of time, okay? And I get challenged by some of our alumni colleagues about the fact that, well, if I can do it for 6 hours, why not try it for 8 hours? It doesn't work. In my theory, it doesn't work. I think you can only squeeze so much of this out there. I think the productivity starts to drift off as you go through. And what I really love is to try and test that out with some kind of research into that. We have never been busier as a company. We are moving things forward. Our marketing is going forwards. We have been so much busier in terms of people wanting to work with us. And it is really reflective of our attitude, of the way that my team work with our customers, that people are coming back and we're getting great updates and great feedback about the way that we interact with our clients. And the recruitment has been so much easier. When we go out to people, we have a real differentiating factor to say to people, well, that company over there is fine, but you can work for us for 6 hours and have the same amount of money. Go ahead, sorry. Yeah.
I would assume actually making it 6 hours would have been easier for you to, introducing a new culture or redefining the design of the organization. Yeah. You would have found a lot of resistance from current employees, especially people who are used to working in usual ways and they're still producing.
Yeah.
But by reducing the time to 6 hours, people are more, okay, I'm listening.
Exactly. It was that big change which meant I could change everything else.
And by the same time, you're still maintaining the same level of productivity.
Yeah, that's right. It's exactly the point, in that we had lots of people doing different things. We had somebody who had an afternoon to do some creativity at some point. We had somebody who wanted to do something else. And actually, by saying, look, I'm going to make this much better for you, but we're going to reset the boundaries, it worked straight away. And they were really kind of, sort of go through that, and the team were really happy, and they still are really happy. I check with them regularly. Do you want to go back? Do you want to change or do something different? And it's sort of much better as we move forwards. I can talk for hours on this, but I've originally had 15 minutes, and I know lunch is kind of on its way, and I'm happy to answer questions. But one of the key takeaways really is it's a different way to approach things. It's a different way of doing business, and I always get a challenge that, oh, it will never work. It will never work for us. It will never work in this environment. And what I say is, back to being obviously, our UEA training, think different. Think why, not actually that it wouldn't work. Think, well, why not try it? Why not see whether it would work? If we can do the same amount of work in 6 hours that we do in 8, and everyone is happier, everyone is much more vibrant, motivational, why not try it? Why not do it? One of the biggest things as I was coming here today, I was thinking about stuff, is that one of the side effects is that the team are now starting to innovate more in their own time. So I'm paying them, okay, to be there for 6 hours, but you'll tend to see them coming in the next day going, I've had a thought, I've had a thing about this, how are we going to move this forwards? Whereas before they probably got home and think, work's over, finished. They're now coming back and innovating in their own time, which is really, really important. And what I would say is you have to embrace it. You have to embrace it and go with it. You have to try to say, how are we going to make this work? But there are different ways of being able to put it into your business as you go through. So have a calm Thursday. On Thursdays, we're just going to do, like our working from home day, we're going to do it on a Thursday. Try it, and then after a couple of weeks, say, okay, this is working. Let's reduce the number of hours on a Thursday to 7 and then to 6 and see how we go and see how we move things forwards. We can do it, but you've got to make sure that people understand why you're doing it and where you're going with it. It will work in every scenario. It will. And I often get people, I heard people in the background on talks like this going, oh, it's fine for a small design agency, but it will never work for a big business. It will, and I'll show you one in a second.
I was actually thinking of that.
Yeah, okay, and I'll show you one in a second. But think differently. The one to really think about, if you really want to read up on this and read it more, and this came after. So, interestingly, after we started this in September 2017, so we've been running it for 18 months now. After that time, there's been an awful lot in the press, in HBR, in various different places just recently, where it's talking about productivity at work. It's talking about the 4-day working week. In some cases, a 6-hour working day. But in other cases, the way that people are actually interacting and doing things in the workplace. And one of the biggest companies which came out in HBR in November, I believe, and you can Google it and find out, is the one, which button am I going to press? Can't remember. This one here, it doesn't have to be crazy at work. These guys, Hansen and Fried, they have a company called Basecamp. Now, Basecamp is a massive software development company with hundreds of employees, both in Silicon Valley but also around the world, and they implement this calm working environment and the same rules as we do. If you read that book, strangely enough, that is exactly what we do, but we did it ourselves and came up with it, which we're really, really proud of. But obviously, I don't have the resources to write a book about it. But those guys, if you really want to find out about it, that book, It Doesn't Have to Be Crazy at Work, is the real kind of key thing. But of course, there's all sorts of other things that we've done in academia as well that comes around to this kind of thing. So looking at motivation by Dan Pink, Drive by Dan Pink, looking at how employees are not just motivated by, as the phrase that we were talking about, taking their cookie, right? We're doing stuff and giving them a cookie. Here you go, you've done it, off you go. Have a look at what else motivates your team and your staff, okay? So we might be competitive in employment, but we're not having people leaving us for higher paid jobs with more stress, okay? We're looking at other things. One of the things that we said to the team was, what other things would you like as perks, as benefits? We've got health insurance, we've got perk box, which is these little things you can get from John Lewis and Apple and stuff like that. And we have our pension schemes and other stuff and other health insurances. The biggest one has actually been the health insurance, bizarrely, and the real sort of view on well-being. Apparently, the health insurance that we put in place has been so beneficial to everyone that they absolutely love it, and it doesn't cost very much money. So looking at different ways of motivating them, looking at well-being, looking at organisation engagement, the team are really starting to come around and really starting to move things forward and becoming to a high-performing team. And this thing about systems thinking, this has been one of my things all the way through. SEDN, systems thinking, public sector in that case for SEDN, but to be really thinking about how we tie everything up from the start to finish. Don't just look at one aspect. Don't just make your business lean. Don't just make your employees happy. Don't do everything together to bring things forward as a company. And we've moved it really forward in the last 18 months, and it's come on a long way. And normally, or sometimes I take employees with me, and they say for themselves as we go through. So that's me. I'm Mark. Thank you for your time and for listening and for staying. If you have any questions, feel free. Hi.
Just out of my curiosity, how do you manage annual leave or sick leave? Are there any issues like that?
How do we manage annual leave in terms of numbers of hours or
days?
Yeah, so we just have the same days. Everything is just the same. It's 6 hours rather than 8 hours. So
annual leave, I mean, 10 days in a year, or
we have 22 days minimum plus a day for every year they've been with us up until 22.
you cover each other if one is absent.
Yeah. When there's 12 of us, so we have enough people to sort of interact and move around. Sick leave. One of the things that we put in place, or one of the theories that we put in place when we were talking about this, was that in theory there should be less sickness. Now, I was thinking about the other day, has there been less sickness? And then I thought, well, there's no control. Okay, we rarely get sickness at all. And actually, one of the things is that we actually started to notice the other day is that it's not just that absenteeism, it's the presenteeism. And I'm going to regret this next week when they all come in. Very few people have come in with colds or things that they're under the weather or they're passing around everyone else. I remember that from before, and it's only after a year that we're actually thinking, do you know what? We're generally more healthy in our approach to what we're doing now. Again, A, I've just now ruined that, and B, I have no evidence for that. But anecdotally, we are happier, healthier, and more productive.
So I'm assuming that based on your management, you have measured the level of employee engagement and the level of employee retention within the organization.
Yeah.
But how would you contribute that changes to the actual benefits of your company, of the actual revenue and performance of the company?
So in terms of the benefits to the employees, we've actually, there's a questionnaire which we've done through a company called Pure and EDP. They do a East of England Business Awards. And there's an employee questionnaire, engagement questionnaire that we fill in and we go through, and we thankfully or happily won a Gold Employers Award. There is a Platinum, which we're aiming for next year. Apparently the reason we didn't get Platinum was just some of the differences in answers and people knowing what the benefits of things are. In terms of the bottom line, we're 18 months through, and some of that's during the change time. Okay. What I can say now is in the last 6 months our revenues are increasing really really dramatically, and also the order book, the market that's coming into us is still rapidly increasing. So from a point whereby things are probably taking, sort of heading towards, in a couple of months we might be out of work, we're now to the point where we're now hiring again, lots of people to try and, so hiring again, we're already back to the same level and moving forwards again, further forward. So it's only anecdotal, but it's doing well. So, and that is directly attributable to the changes in the company overall, including the working hours. Okay, any other questions? Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks ever so much, Mark.
Okay.